All right, welcome into the MPW Digital Postgame Show. I am Chase Parham here, your tour guide for the next couple hours or so. Ole Miss 52, Vanderbilt 28. Rebels overtaking the Commodores in the second half, a third quarter that I just called a bludgeoning for Ole Miss. They outscored Vanderbilt 21 to nothing in the quarter. They outgained them, I think, 217 to 31, 217 to 38, something like that. So we'll talk about it. We'll call Jeffrey, we'll call Neil, we'll call Brian. We'll take your calls as well. A lot coming up on the show today. And what go ahead and admit it. Let me know, guys. How nervous were you? Were you actually concerned there? Ole Miss down 20 to 10 at one point prior to outscoring the Commodores 42 to 8 the rest of the way. Lane Kiffin absolutely knowing the betting line. Matt Jones gets him a touchdown. Lane covering there in the final minute to put the Rebels over the number, a line that closed anywhere between 17 and 19, I think, something like that, depending on the book of your choice. So interesting day. If you're a dead Soxy fan, and you should be, Neil loves the no shows. I like the longer dress socks. Lane helps you out as well. Lane is an absolutely a dead Soxy fan that pushes their discount up to 52%. So you can take advantage of that. 52% now with Dead Soxy after the score today. So a lot going on. We've got Kentucky and South Carolina on TV tonight. Alabama and Texas A&M as well, and then an interesting day in college football. I think some stuff to talk about for sure. Will Levis out for the Wildcats tonight. He did not even warm up, didn't participate at all. He's in a boot and sweats. So a redshirt freshman starting for Kentucky today. His first start since high school in 2020 for the Wildcats tonight against South Carolina. So yeah, I mean Ole Miss definitely did an injury report. Don't have that obviously here. We'll see what Lane has to say in the press conference if he gives anything away at all. Saw Michael Trigg come down on his shoulder. Saw Cedric Johnson get banged up there at the end. I don't know if that was a cramp or what was involved there. I was kind of getting stuff ready for the show, but yeah, Ole Miss little banged up there toward the end. But I thought a lot of maturity. I thought a lot of composure. Would have been really easy to let that thing. I don't know if spiral is the right word, but Vanderbilt was dominating the line of scrimmage, dominating the game from a standpoint of simply the lines of scrimmage, tempo, all those different things there. The huge throw to Mingo late in the first half. Troy was hurt as well. Sorry, forgot that. Yeah, Trigg bothered me, and I know I'm jumping all over the place. Trigg bothered me because the way he was kind of holding it, you could see that it was slumped down. It was not symmetrical when he was walking off, just the way it was hanging. I didn't like the body language there on Trigg. I mean, we'll see. I'm far from a doctor in any capacity, but that was sort of what I saw. Um, but no, Ole Miss, they get the big throw late, score, cut it to three at the half, and then sort of take over. There was some interesting stuff there, and in some positive ways for Ole Miss. Jackson Dart, he ends up with 400 and I think 48 yards, something like that. That ties the fifth all-time mark for a game in Ole Miss school history. He has three long touchdowns, a lot that were more run than catch, but he hits Jordan Watkins for a 61-yard touchdown. Mingo has a 71-yarder and a 72-yarder. Mingo now the all-time school record holder for receiving yards in a game. Elijah Moore had the record before that at 238 yards against Vanderbilt in 2020. Mingo today, far fewer catches. I think just 9 is what he ended up with, and he went for 247. So Mingo has that record as well. Yeah, when Ole Miss was down 20 to 10, you were not expecting, hey, here's a bunch of passing records that are about to fall, but instead Ole Miss covers the number and they win pretty handily there. So that's sort of set up where it's where we're at. We'll get Jeffrey on the line in a second. I haven't even checked with him, but I'll see him on his call and see if he answers. Kentucky and South Carolina just kicking. Kentucky going chrome helmet, blue on blue. I mean, a rough look for the Wildcats tonight, but it is what it is. We'll see what they do with their redshirt freshman starting quarterback. Who are you guys for? Are you for Kentucky or Carolina? Texas just hammers Oklahoma today. Brett Venables took 45 minutes or longer to get into the press conference today. Really strange. Missouri covered the number in Gainesville. In Nils picks, I was having one hell of a day. I think the only game I've lost is Ole Miss. I had Vanderbilt covering, and I think that is the only game that I have lost to this point. So yeah, it's been a pretty good day for Neil's picks after last week. It's been yeah, you should be for Kentucky. I mean, you want a team you beat to have a good season. You don't play South Carolina. It gives you a better quality of win. It is kind of hard to hate Stoops. I don't. Scott, appreciate the super chat. He says um, sharing some of the proceeds from the backdoor cover. Always appreciated. Thank you for that. Yeah, Carolina's going white on white, and then their garnet helmet, but I can't see much else with that. All right, hold on. Let me try to get Jeffrey on the line real quick. Dub Jr., thanks for the super chat as well. Just kind of hanging out. Ended up being a pretty good day. I was getting some text there in the second half going, "Hey, thoughts and prayers. This thing could turn sideways on a post game show tonight. We haven't done a loss yet. Tulsa has been the most grumpy you guys have been, and I thought, oh, if this thing goes sideways at all, or even it's kind of close late, this could be rough. But not the case. Everything worked out pretty well for the Rebels, other than maybe injuries. I mean, I do think that's something to watch. No targeting calls today, and then Auburn in 7 days, an Auburn team that was pretty listless against Georgia today. So we'll see if Jeffrey's on the line.
Sorry. Okay, I should be good.
Did you think it was ever in doubt, even at 20-10?
No, my wife left the house. My wife left the house. She says she got us groceries. No, she was just leaving the house because she couldn't watch. I was upset because when I went to live bet it, I was hoping Ole Miss was an underdog, and they weren't. So I couldn't get plus money. But no, I bet them 3 times tonight.
What was the worst the odds ever got?
Minus 115.
Oh wow! Really?
So basically,
Okay.
the lowest they got, they were still even when they were down 10, they were still a 1.5 point favorite.
And that makes sense. And then once they cut it to 20-17, I mean, it was just a matter of time at that point. That was that. I mean, Vandy had to
No, I
get a
mean,
stop there and then score to open the third to make that a real game.
I thought Vanderbilt did everything they could to keep the game close. But I don't know, like, they had a very ball control, conservative game plan. But like, if you're going to win that game, if you're Vanderbilt, like, you have to punch in your 2 drives in the first half where you have to punch those in, and they didn't. So, they played the style of game that you play to cover a number, but I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I never felt threatened like they were actually going to win the game.
Lane Kiff, we'll go backwards to forwards and I'm kind of all over the place because they won the game. There's no sense in going crazy into minutia, even though I do have a couple questions. Lane clearly knew the number. He rushes in, he gets the extra play off when he could have just knelt. And then if that was true what he told the sideline reporter, and he went and found Clark Lee to say, hey, we had to snap it again. I mean, you have to give him a lot of credit for at least believing some conviction on what he needed to pass along right there, right? Because that was
but first off, yeah, but like, no offense, like, Clark Lee went for 2.
Well, that's true. Okay. Hey, okay. I kind of forgot that.
Like,
all right.
Clark Lee went for 2, and before every analytics nerd out there goes, well, that's what you're supposed to do when you're down multiple scores. There was 4 minutes left. The game was over. You don't like
still 3 scores. Still 3 scores.
Correct. So he went for 2. Like, it's over at that. Like, you lose the right at that point when you go for 2 and you try the onside kick, you lose the right to complain.
Does Lane score there if Clark Lee doesn't go for 2?
Absolutely not.
You think he scored because Clark went for 2?
Correct.
Okay.
And tried the onside kick. I think if they kick it deep, they don't try to score either.
I mean, there is a little bit, hey, by God, if you're going to play to the whistle, I'm going to do it too. Jerk. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not going to run
100%.
Judkins and do something stupid, but hey, here, take the ball, Matt.
He scored with Kincaid, Dent, and Woolard.
Matt Jones.
Sorry. Apologies.
It's okay. Yeah, I know.
What am I missing here? To me, if you're going to be the underdog, if you want the game to be over, make the game be over. Ole Miss was fine having the game be over. Instead, you kept playing because you're trying to build a program. Well, that's fine. Guess what? I get to score on you too.
Yeah. What do we? Because they won the game going away, so it's not like it's some kind of how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln. But what do we think of Dart today? I mean, it was really, really good, except for those two boneheaded plays. Those two boneheaded plays were really, really, really boneheaded. So I mean, it's kind of just more of the same, right?
Yeah, I did think the offense was starting to get a little rhythm and momentum. I'm not even talking about throughout the course of the game. Didn't you feel like at times it started to look like we're used to seeing it look?
Because it wasn't that the ball was going down the field, but he was hitting the crossing routes. He was running the offense in the passing game the way we are used to seeing it. Because frankly, for 5 games, he'd been kind of a check down machine. It had been little curls and hooks out on the edges and not really the things we had seen from the slot and the things across the middle of the field. When Ole Miss is appealing to my eye and when they look aesthetically is when they're able to run to the edges and then throw across the middle. And I thought that's what we saw as that second half was playing out.
Well, I think it's also important to note this was the first game that I felt like Vanderbilt's defense, and maybe it's the first game that was able to do it, but Vanderbilt's defense loaded the box. Vanderbilt's defense loaded the box, and they were willing to play one-on-one. And we saw this week those I thought everyone was being a little hard on the receivers, and I feel like I was a little vindicated today. Like, when those guys get one-on-one, they're pretty good. The difference is they just haven't had one-on-one for the last 5 weeks.
And Mingo has always been good with his physicality, good with body control, all those sorts of things. He's healthy for, frankly, completely healthy for maybe the first time in his career, at least since he was a freshman. I mean, he does give you – I get it's not this burner thing, but he does give you some interesting threats out there on the outside when they don't bracket him.
I mean, is he going to win a foot race with the fastest guy on the planet? No, but, he had plenty of breakaway speed of me today.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give Vandy credit. I think they look way more athletic than they have. They had some guys that I thought that they have a little bit of team speed there.
Well, there's a real plan. I mean, maybe it's talent and speed. Maybe it's a little more of everything, and that's why you notice it. But I mean, as you said, they sort of did everything they could do today. The Swan kid's not bad. I like Shepard a lot. Davis kid's pretty good. I mean, they're fine.
I thought they had a very good game plan. Like on third downs, you could tell on third downs they knew where the spots were in coverage. You know what I mean? I felt like they had a good plan. It's just they went up against a team that was better.
Sleepiness to be expected, letdown game. What'd you make of the first, 15 to 25 minutes of this game?
Road game. Honestly, probably the best. Right, it's the best road environment they've probably played in, and they had half of it. I thought that was a better environment than Georgia Tech was.
Oh, that is going to be an interesting thing. Is they're not going to see a real road game until Baton Rouge in 2 weeks.
Correct. And so on top of that, they come out their first drive and they're moving the ball pretty well. I can't remember, did they get a negative play or a penalty late in the drive? Because that was when Aaliyah was yelling and I was having to change the channel to another TV because she didn't want the sound on. Was it there was like a penalty? There was either a penalty or a negative play that kind of backed them up on 3rd and long, and you just knew they were going to kick a field goal. Then I thought Vanderbilt had a really good drive, or like a good game script, and Vanderbilt did a pretty good job playing keep away. And didn't it feel like when Ole Miss got the ball back, like that they were trying to score like on one play?
It was that, and yeah, because it was almost one of those deals where it can bite you. They had let penalties kill their previous drives. They had kind of bogged down of their own suicide, where it was like, okay, just get it all down back right now. I'm frustrated. I'm impatient. Let's go.
Yeah.
They were mad at themselves.
Yeah, and it felt a lot like that to me. And then I think in the first half, defensively, they did not adjust very well to every time Vanderbilt would, shift and move, move the form, like it was like moving a couple tight ends over. I felt like they got outflanked pretty badly every time in that situation. I didn't think they adjusted very well to that until halftime. And I thought, for the most part, Vandy ran the ball pretty well without, in terms of you're just trying to control the ball. I thought Vandy ran the ball pretty well. And then in the second half, I don't know whether or not it was Lane griping and whatnot, but they didn't call a lot of holding in the first half, but they did call a lot of holding in the second half. And all of a sudden, those drives that were kind of staying alive and getting converted, those drives were stalling out. And then, once Ole Miss got the ball, I felt like the only way Ole Miss wasn't scoring when they got the ball in the second half was if they committed a turnover or they had stupid penalties.
And the run game wasn't very good in the first half at all. I think it was only 45 yards, but it sort of needed the pass game a little bit. Yeah, I think Vanderbilt was stopping the run and allowing other things. Ole Miss just had to hit it.
Correct. Vanderbilt was basically saying, we're not letting you beat us with the inside run game.
Mm-hmm.
And that was to my point. That's why I thought the receivers looked better today. They had more room to run.
We're guessing here. Anything to do with injuries that you noticed that you think could be more severe? I mean, was there some of them thought, hey, cramp, and some of you thought, oh, that didn't look good?
I don't remember anyone getting banged up, really.
I mean, Trigg with the shoulder, I'd like to see what happened because he was painting that right shoulder.
No, Trigg. I think Trigg either got the old separated shoulder or the stinger. That's the only one I can think of. By the way, that was a hell of a freaking catch. Holy hell, that was an awesome catch.
The ability to go get the football is exactly what everybody knows he can do. Because my God, yes,
correct. He literally snagged it out of the air. That was impressive.
Yeah, Troy got banged up, but I mean, I could easily be wrong. That looked stinger to me. I thought he just kind of got a little bit of a weird shot.
Yeah,
Cedric looked fine.
The other thing is, all of the injuries I think would have mostly been on defense.
They were.
Because they were on, holy hell, let's see. Well, 41-17 to 18-43.
41.
That's the other thing. 41 minutes of football.
I mean, I am kind of curious at snap counts tomorrow. They've got to rotate more if they're going to do 40 minutes on defense every week.
Well, I think this was more of an outlier than anything. I think you got to give Vanderbilt credit. I thought they were very efficient. They're not good on offense, but I thought they were efficient on offense.
They have 3 or 4 players that are pretty good. Their scheme is good, and they're good enough at the O-line position to move the football on you. They are. I mean, they're fine. But Vanderbilt, I know Alabama steamrolled them, but they're fine. They're not good, but they're competent.
But let's also be clear. Alabama steamrolled them at home. I feel like we still have COVID brain, where everyone's like, the road doesn't matter. What the hell, people? The road is freaking hard to win on. Like I don't understand this. Like, I feel like we literally had 1 year where the road didn't matter, and everybody just decided that was the new norm.
That's a good point. We do kind of just do verse instead of at these days. Who do they have?
Correct.
Oh, they've got this team, this team, this team, this team, this team. Yeah, no huge consideration on where the hell the games are.
Yeah, and you know, it's a sleepy environment. It's tough to get up, but I mean, like, you know, I just feel like everyone has. Yeah, it's no one pays any attention to game script or whatnot. It's just like, who did you play, and whatever you have in your mind of that team. Like, I mean, have you officially apologized? You and Neil, have y'all apologized for your Mississippi State take being bad yet?
I was gonna go there next. I was literally the next thing out of my mouth going to mention that you have to feel some joy in your decision and your pick that Mississippi State is a pretty good football team.
And by the way, like, this isn't even like a poking. It was just so bizarre to me that y'all acted like,
well, I thought
you
LSU
saw one
sucked,
game,
and it was like, look, it was okay.
Just a minute. That was you wanting. No, it was you wanting them to not be good.
Well, I don't want them to be good, but it's
correct. But that's what it was.
But it's history. It's all no. Stop. It's also history, because Mike Leach's teams typically struggle against better defenses that are quick, so their ceiling is never overly high. So I'm playing into that a little bit. I mean, today was the first time as a state coach he had a 100-yard rusher in a game. I thought that LSU controlled that game in the second half defensively, and I thought LSU was incredibly mediocre. And in my head, it's a calculated decision on if LSU did that to them in the second half defensively, then other teams are going to do it too, and they're going to lose some games. Again, it was
and
Baton Rouge.
It was a night game in Baton Rouge, and they had like 11. They had like 11 drops.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, I watched that game, and again, I was no big deal. I was in a winery in Napa at a wedding, watching that game on my phone, and I don't know. Like, I felt like it was like, I didn't feel like State like 100% dominated or controlled the game, but it's like that to me, like, this team looks like a year 3 Mike Leach team. He's got a quarterback that knows what he's doing. They're very solid on defense. And then the other thing, man, when does Ole Miss get Arkansas?
Late. It's like the next to last week of the year. You want them now, right now.
That's a shame. You want them absolutely right now, because they got nothing.
Now they're getting killed mentally and emotionally too. Like, they're going into the tank. They might not completely fall apart. They might be good when Ole Miss goes to Fayetteville, or fine. But I mean, right now they are one just discombobulated football team.
Well, and it shows just how much the quarterback matters to them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, their offense is, the show. It was like kind of like, when Ole Miss lost Corral last year, like, it didn't look good.
What kind of shot we'll do this on Thursday, but what kind of shot do you give in Tennessee against Alabama next week?
Well, what do we think?
I mean, at this moment, they haven't kicked. We don't know what Bryce or Milroe or any of that's going to work out. I have no idea.
I'm under the assumption Milroe's playing tonight.
Okay.
So my question is Milroe playing tonight because Saban thinks he can win the game with Milroe? Or is Milroe tonight because I saw Bryce Young chunk his helmet after he hurt his shoulder, and maybe it's more than just a day-to-day sprain? Like, to me, that's the question, right?
Because if Milroe plays, Tennessee, I mean, I don't know if they're going to be favored, but they've got a really good shot to win that football game.
Well, it's a game at home, and more importantly, I think Tennessee's vertical passing game is legit, don't you?
No, it is. It's real. And Hooker's been really efficient. He's been really careful with the football. He runs that offense well. I mean, Virginia Tech That guy bounced out of Virginia Tech.
No, it's what. So Giannato was over at my house watching games today, and Mark covered Tech before he moved here, and it's like, in the end, the decision that probably got Fuente fired was picking Braxton Burmeister, and then more importantly, like when the heat started getting turned up on him, Virginia Tech fans were watching Hendon Hooker light up the SEC, and they're like, "Wait a minute, this guy couldn't play for us."
Yeah. I mean,
it really is true.
He's a Heisman candidate right now. It's only week 5 or whatever, but still.
He is in the exact same position that Matt was in last year at this time.
Yeah.
Because none of the favorites right now have a clear cut. I guess CJ Stroud is the closest thing, right?
Yeah, sure. No, he's been good. They're winning. Yeah.
But like, I think the other problem with a guy like CJ Stroud is I think we all kind of know, like, oh, he's good, but when you sit and you watch Ohio State games and you're like, God damn, he's got all day to throw. Those guys are wide open. Like, I don't know. It's tough to be wowed by him, right? But even though, like, I don't want this to come across like, oh, I don't think he's doing anything. But it's like, I don't think he's having wow moments. But I still think, like, he's doing a good job. And so the question then becomes, like, do you have to have the wow moments to win the Heisman? And I think if you're the quarterback at Ohio State, probably not. You probably just have to beat Michigan, right?
I think for CJ Stroud to win the Heisman, they have to go undefeated and win the Big Ten.
Undefeated. The good thing, though, that's working for him, though, they have very good receivers, but they don't have the one dominant receiver right now because I think Smith and Jigba, I think my boy's pulling a low-key Jamar Chase. I think he's pulling a Jamar Chase while staying on the team.
Just calling it. That's it. The next level's here.
I think
minimal
he'll play the big ones.
Yeah.
I think he's going to play the big games. I think he's going to play the really big game. Which, by the way, I kind of respect the hell out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Illinois is not going to get his attention.
No, I'll see you. I'll see you in the Michigan game in the playoff.
What's Ole Miss going to see from Auburn next week?
So, how much of that game did you get to watch?
I followed the first half, so I missed Georgia extending and kind of running away with it.
Okay, so Auburn is not a bad defensive team.
No.
They are a horrific offensive team. Now, the question is, so Topmeyer and I were talking about this on Friday, and I'm curious to know, because Neil would probably have a better sense. Is it possible that the Auburn boosters, they've been bad-mouthed and poor-mouthed so much for acting irrationally and stupid that they're finally letting this play out? And, like, I always thought the dumbest thing that Auburn boosters would do is, hey, man, if you just let it play out, the guy's going to hang himself. And
yes.
The thing is, like, the more and more you kind of ended up, by being so irrational with Harsin last year, you kind of made some people be like, man, that's not the way to treat him. Like, he's our football coach. Like, don't treat him like that. But now that, like, Harsin, now that they're kind of like staying in the background and they're letting him just kind of lose games, Harsin ends up not having any defenders. And so I think there's a decent chance, like, Harsin's the coach next week. And if that's the case, Ole Miss has to get probably, I think if Ole Miss gets into the 20s, they probably win.
Yeah, I mean, Vanderbilt is better offensively than Auburn. It's one of those deals where it's
completely
without turnovers really affecting field position. It's hard to see Auburn get to that 28-point mark. It feels
right. Like,
it feels 17-ish.
Yeah, offensively, like, I don't know, like, could they have some defensive score, special teams? Sure, but it's like, if it's a normal football game, I don't see that offense getting into the 20s. So if Ole Miss gets into the 20s, I think they win.
Well, there's no reason, frankly, to fire Harsin until the end of the year, or at least what gets you ahead of any kind of coaching search situation. Although, if everyone around that program is to be believed, and again, I mean, that shit show goes 1,000 directions all the time, so who knows if it is or not. But I mean, it feels like they have really identified Hartwell as a primary leading candidate right now. And if that's the case, Hartwell kind of knows where he's headed. I mean, you're not even necessarily competing against anybody in the pool that they're talking about because, look, you go through Auburn's history, they haven't made these splashy coach hires. They've hired group of five guys and assistants. They've never gone and taken the dude from somebody. That's not their thing.
No, they're incestuous.
Yeah.
No, they want the Auburn family. They want, and the reality is they want that because, that's their buddies.
Texas boosters getting out of their way much faster than Auburn's getting out of theirs, right? Are you thinking or are you gone?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you came back now. Yeah, you died for like 5 seconds.
Sorry. No, I think if you look at it with Texas right now, like Sarkisian's organizing them vertically pretty quickly.
To the point that they're going to be ready.
When has Auburn ever been organized vertically?
They've stumbled into situations, but no, they've never been organized all the way through. Yes, and I understand the chat. Y'all are yelling at us about Tommy Tuberville, but I'm going to go that was a different era, and that was more on Ole Miss.
But Tommy, I disagree on that. Tommy did not have them organized vertically. Tommy had the room. It was very similar to Mac, where the comparisons would be is Mac at Texas and Tommy at Texas were the same thing. Mac and Tommy were the governor or the politician that was in the room and everybody was on board, but it was not organized vertically like it is at Alabama. Like it is like right now, Sark. Now the thing with Sark that he's going to have to deal with is it's organized vertically for him right now, but they'll probably turn on him really quickly. Like, I disagree that Tommy ever had it vertically. Like, Tommy just had everyone kind of in the room. Like, everyone was kind of moving in the same direction, but it was not top down. That certainly was not a Saban situation where Tommy said went. You know what I mean?
And I was more speaking to they took somebody's coach because it was Ole Miss's. Like, they haven't always hired the assistant or whatever.
Sorry, I thought you were saying vertically.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So I guess the point on that and where I was going to kind of close the day's action a little bit is that if you're buying stock, you're buying it in Texas over Oklahoma as far as an SEC team?
1,000%.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the reality.
Is this Venables or is this Oklahoma as a program?
I think it's a little column A, a little column B, a little column C. It's a little bit of everything. I think number one, let's be real. You hired an unproven head coach on the defensive side of the ball. All right. Then not only did you lose your offensive mastermind, if you will, I don't have the Lincoln Riley gene like a lot of other people do. Like, I think he's a good coach, but I don't think he's like some type of generational like wonderkin that we've never seen before. I think he's a good coach, but that's about it. But on top of that, how many guys did they lose? So now you've lost so much. You lost it late in the process, and trying to build back up was going to take some time. And then you and I both think pretty highly of Levy, I think. But this idea that Dylan Gabriel was going to be like the same type player that they've had at quarterback was absurd to me. Like, I've watched Dylan at UCF, and it's like he throws a pretty good deep ball, but Dylan Gabriel was just a above average AAC quarterback. How is that guy going to be that guy was going to be following up Heisman Trophy winners.
Well, and
Like,
I mean,
that never makes sense.
and their backup's not even competent. Like it was Gabriel or nothing. And when that's the case, your ceiling is fairly low. I mean, look, Oklahoma's not going to suck forever. Yeah, I don't necessarily mean that, but they did not put a roster together that could win right now, and mixed with a coach who had been at Clemson forever in this cushy situation that is a complete 180 from what that cat's running into in Norman right now. I don't know if he's prepared for it or not, but I mean, he's going to get overrun by that. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, and you mentioned Gabriel from how long they're going to be in the program and their upsides. Ole Miss got the better quarterback.
1,000%. Listen, I thought when people told me that Ole Miss was going to get Dart, I thought it was like, holy hell, like that's a coup. Because in reality, Jackson Dart would have been the USC quarterback if John Bone doesn't pull off the Lincoln Riley heist.
Oh, well, yeah, 100%. Yeah, he was staying there. Uh-huh.
I mean, let's be clear. Jackson made 2 really bad decisions today. Jackson's still good. Jackson as a 19-year-old sophomore is still an above-average SEC quarterback.
That's a decent place to kind of end on. Where would you put him right now in the hierarchy? League quarterbacks.
Okay, so I'd rather have Bryce. I think right now you have to say you'd rather have Hendon Hooker, right?
Yes, you do. Sure.
They play in similar offenses, and Hendon Hooker's got it running pretty good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I mean, you're really glassing if you put him in front of Hendon Hooker.
I think the question becomes. I think you got to say, presuming health, you'd probably rather have KJ.
Ooh.
If KJ is healthy, because, dude, look how quickly it fell apart for Arkansas's offense. All of a sudden, they can't even run it.
I want Dart's career more than I want Jefferson's career. I think Dart next year is a better quarterback than Jefferson at any point.
I think that's a different question, though.
Yeah. You just mean today to finish the season. Okay.
Correct. Well, no, what I'm saying is, like, where is he currently ranked in the SEC hierarchy of quarterbacks? I totally agree. If you're talking about who would I rather have would I rather have Jackson Dart's career or KJ's career, I definitely agree with you. But I'm talking about if you're having to rank it right now, because that's the question for me.
Yeah, I got you.
Honestly, I think you got to put Rodgers in front of him. Rodgers is playing pretty good football.
He's playing really good football. I never know what to do with a Leach quarterback outside of that system, but he's doing a really good job.
But that's the thing. Correct. That's a different thing to me. But, like, in terms of operating his offense, I think he's doing a really good job. Then I think we're talking about the Jackson Dart tier. I mean, you and I don't know, did we take any flack for it? Because I stand by it. I still thought Jackson outplayed Levis last week, even though the numbers were not similar. I just know what I watched. I thought Jackson Dart did more things that impressed me than Levis did. Miller is playing, by the way.
Oh, really? I just now flipped it over there. I had Carolina on. Did everybody take Bama to cover?
No, I took the points.
Did you? Okay.
But I told you, I think it was – well, no, like I took the points also with Georgia, and that backfired on me.
Yeah. You felt pretty good there for a while. Nobody scored.
Well, no, I never felt good. I never felt good because I knew that game could snowball.
You got an NFL pick for tomorrow? Just one?
What is the money split? I really like the Jags tomorrow, but I feel like that's like a trap.
You think everybody's on that?
I think let me see. All right, BetMGM. Jags. As I suspected, 62% of bets, 32% of money are on the Jaguars. That's a SpongeBob SquarePants pick. I guess we got to go. Let's go back to the well, buddy, right? Teddy Bridgewater against the number.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God.
Dude, he's awesome. He is awesome against the number.
Okay.
He's like the sixth most profitable quarterback of all time. It's like, literally, it's like a Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks. It's like Brady, Peyton, Breeze, Rodgers, Teddy Bridgewater. Like, it is unbelievable.
Speaking of Bridgewater and tying it into the Saints, I don't know that I would go over a win total for the Saints if you gave me 6 right now.
No, I was actually thinking that they're actually like one of the least fun teams to watch, right? Like,
They're
I forget
horrid.
like your fandom. I'm just because they're good defensively, but when they get the ball, it just feels like it's hopeless. Now, I guess it's to be fair to them. Like, let's watch tomorrow because their offense is completely different with Kamara. But I mean, man, I think the thing that was depressing about last week was I thought Dalton played pretty well, didn't you?
He played plenty good enough to win, but he's also playing without Michael Thomas, without Kamara. I mean, it was an impossibility from the start to even get it close. So maybe they don't suck as bad as I'm feeling like they suck. But you're right. They're so boring in the standpoint of their defense is good enough to sort of stop people and don't allow a lot of big plays and excitement. Yeah. And then their offense bogs down, but they're not so good on defense that we're doing like they're just this smash mouth defensive football team. They're kind of opportunistic and fast. Completely different thing.
They're a havoc creating defense, but they're not. They're gettable. Like you can kind of, like we saw, Jefferson got them on some big plays. Like you can create big plays on them, but yeah, I mean, I'll say this though, like my team's sitting here at 3-1 and they're borderline unwatchable. So yeah, I mean, like what does watchability really mean in me?
Yeah. Ole Miss Auburn 14 next week.
Let's see. All right, today. What did today close? 17?
Yeah, 17 or 17 and a half. I don't know which one.
All right, I think Ole Miss might get bumped up a little bit. Auburn will get bumped down a little bit. The thing though is, Auburn lines have been like the problem I think Auburn has is Auburn's power ratings make them more valuable. Like you could tell me the number ends up being like Ole Miss -10, but then it gets bet up pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Because like think about it. Remember like when Auburn was playing Missouri, we didn't know what to do with the line because we're like, how is Auburn favored by a touchdown against anyone? Like their numbers, I feel like have been wrong almost every week.
It doesn't feel like that can be in the single digits. And it's going to move there quickly. So
I guess the question is, where does it close? I think it'll close closer to 2 touchdowns than it will single digits.
No, I agree with that. I mean, and again, at the end of the day, Ole Miss covered today. They hit the line.
It was a story. They told a hell of a story, but it took a while.
Completely last thing, and I'll let you go. Anything from tonight? I mean, Milrose does not throw the ball well. I mean, does A&M have a chance to make this a 4-quarter game?
I think so, just because Jimbo's going to play this game to keep it close rather than try to win. I will say this though: how much of Milroe did you get to watch last week?
A decent amount, yeah. I turned it back on once he kind of came in.
He is not just like a good runner; he is an awesome runner. Like that guy might be the fastest guy on the field.
Still one-dimensional, but yes.
Correct, but he's also not a good thrower, but he is not a like horrific thrower. He's not like when you watch him throw, you're like, this guy could. He's like he's a lot like Jalen Hurts was his freshman year.
Oh, okay. And better runner.
But
honestly.
I think he's faster.
Yeah, he's
I think he's faster. I don't know if he maybe is as power. Like Jalen Hurts was a very powerful runner. I don't know if he's as powerful of a runner as he is, but I think he's a better runner, or better pure runner, I should say.
Right. All right, bud. Appreciate it. Let's do it again Thursday.
By the way, did our boy go to Nashville?
Oh yeah. Waiting on him now.
Oh God.
Up there,
Gross.
taking it all in. Hey, had 3 content items ready when the game was over, just writing his full head off.
Oh, by the way, the Wrights are headed to Oxford next week.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Gonna take one in?
Gonna take one in. I'm gonna sit in Section O for the first time since I think I did the math in my head. I think the last game I sat in Section O was the Mississippi State game 2012.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it'll make for a good one. Sounds good, bud.
All right. See y'all next week.
Yeah, yep. That was Jeffrey Wright joining us, as he does after every game when he's in the Southern United States. Only when he was at a wedding that he missed. Appreciate his time. As always, we will talk to him on Thursday about him taking in the Rebels and the Tigers on Saturday morning, 11 o'clock start for that one. Still waiting on Neil. He's got a lot of content up, but post game at Vanderbilt can get a little weird. They do it kind of out on the field. They have an inside locker room area, and then a lot of times they kind of bring players and stuff out, so that thing gets slow depending on what is going on there. I turned it away when I turned South Carolina. They were beating Kentucky 7-0. Kentucky had maybe missed a kick. And then A&M and Alabama currently scoreless in the game that I have on in front of me. I want to see – I wrote this in observations, which are on the site at rebelgrove.com. I want to see the snap count breakdowns tomorrow for offensive linemen. Looked like there was some rotation. Looked like they were doing some different stuff, guys at different positions. Kind of curious exactly what was going on there because on TV it was just impossible to see it for sure. But I do want to see what was – that's kind of something to watch tomorrow for that. Has anybody tweeted about Lane's press conference? Anything as far as what's been said or not said or anything else? Do we know anything? And again, we'll get to Neil whenever he is available. Again, I'm waiting on him now, so I don't know time frame and what that looks like.
What's up?
Oh, not much. Really thankful that the game turned out how it did because I was kind of like Jeffrey. I was talking to him a second ago. I never thought that the game was in danger, but I was sitting here thinking, hey, this thing could turn clearly another direction from a post-game show if this is close in the fourth quarter. It kind of took 38-20 or whatever it was for me to go, whew, okay, everybody's going to be in a pretty decent mood here at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of had the same train of thought. And you say, the game was never in danger. And I tend to agree with that line of thinking. But when Vanderbilt went up 10 points, you're another bad dart decision away from it actually getting in danger, right? I mean, if they have another turnover in their own territory and Vanderbilt gets that to 13 or 17, then you're probably talking about a whole different game. So I'm with you. I mean, Ole Miss started sluggish. I saw that Lane Kiffin in his SEC Network interview coming out for the third quarter said something to the effect of we screwed around in the first half. And I thought that was a pretty succinct way to describe things. But yeah, I didn't necessarily think it was in doubt either. Vanderbilt's not terrible though. I just don't think they have much depth. That quarterback's okay. Again, as I've said like 10 times, they have more SEC caliber players. It seems like they just don't really have enough of them. And I think that probably showed in the second half.
And it's still a question if they're ever going to have enough of them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the James Franklin days are long gone. I think the school is probably pretty intent on that happening from the sounds of it. But, yeah, I mean, and then in the other piece of it, too, Ole Miss didn't play well in the first half, but I thought Vanderbilt played pretty well. I thought they were pretty sound offensively. They kind of beat Ole Miss up. And then as they started making mistakes in the second half, Ole Miss capitalized on them, and it turned into what it was.
How's your picks done today, bud?
It has to be better, right? I know I had Ole Miss. I know I had Georgia. Those were two late sweet covers or whatever.
Hey,
So it can't
you
get
and
any.
I got Missouri too.
Oh, we did late as well. Missouri was in that game. That one was a little more justified than the other two. So I have 3 wins. I don't know what my picks record is, but I think 3 wins is probably as much or more I had in the previous 2 weeks. So, don't let me get hot.
You said it in the thing. You've got to be in your head at this point. Like no matter what the game is, you've got to be changing your mind 9 different times.
Oh, absolutely. And it's fun, right? It's like tongue in cheek. I enjoy it. And obviously I take the pick seriously, but it's like anything else. I took over Zach Berry's record last year and had kind of a ridiculous run. And then this year is so bad, like 13-37 or whatever I am is so difficult to do. You can't really help but just laugh and embrace it. I mean, it just kind of goes that way sometimes. Like if I picked them blindfolded and just knew the colors of each team and nothing else, I probably would have done better than my record, don't you think? I mean, that's hard to accomplish.
It's almost impossible from a human standpoint to pick 14-37 or 17-37 or whatever it is because I mean it's a coin flip nature. I mean you should be at least 35 to 40% just because. I mean I think I really because and I don't mean it could have been any of us. I mean I've had years where I've really sucked too. I wish we should be doing something in picks like where we have a dog and we like just give them 2 different kinds of dog food and pick games every time and see how the dog does picking Alpo or whatever the hell something else is, Purina.
I'm glad we didn't start that this year because the dog would just be whipping me.
Like, was it Laura Rutledge that lets her kid pick every week?
Yes, exactly. I mean, if we started the dog thing this year, I mean, I try not to get demoralized, but losing to something that doesn't have opposable thumbs, that would be real. That just add insult to injury with this year.
So, who knows if this is true or not? I mean, we're all just kind of speculating and commentating, and I haven't even heard Lane talk at the end of the press conference. I heard him say he mentioned Dart's 2 bad decisions, the 2 picks that were both horrendous, and just by osmosis and listening and talking to him, I think you've learned some about quarterback play from Ryan Buchanan doing your show every week. He'll be back this week at some point, I assume, as well. Thought you had an interesting take it's speculation, but we know everybody does get banged around a little bit that may not have been as met the eye and for that second interception today.
Yeah, so I texted you this a little bit after it happened. And again, as you just outlined, it's just complete speculation. I was just kind of tossing a theory out there. The second interception, so the first one, I mean, look, you can't defend. It's like Dart can't help himself. He's like your buddy who like, oh, that kid's really gotten his, what together. He's, on the up and up, has a nice job. And it's like, as long as he doesn't drink X when we go out, he's fine. And then you see him at the bar getting a shot or whatever, and you wake up with, a hole in your drywall or something. It's like, damn it, he did it again. That's what I kind of feel like with one of those 1 or 2 bad decisions he has a game. The second one, though, getting back to the theory, Buchanan has talked to me a couple times about, and I don't know this again for a fact, it's just throwing something out there, thought, because that play looks so weird. It almost looked like he hooked or shanked his own throw. Like it looked like a pull hook drive into the woods where he held on to the club too long or held on to the football too long. I don't even know if it was a terrible read. I'd have to go see the play again. But he got his bell rung really badly 2 plays before when he kept the football. And Buchanan has mentioned a couple of times, like, hey, people don't notice this, but a lot of times when you really get hit and you kind of get your, I hate using this term, but brain scrambled a bit and you're a little bit woozy, that can affect you for 2 or 3 plays. And he got really, really hit hard and seemed to hit his head on the grass really hard about 2 plays before that. And I just wonder if that's what that was, because the throw looked so unnatural in the way he delivered it and so far off. I was honestly probably just grasping at straws as to what that could possibly be. So it's, again, I have no idea what it is. The first one's indefensible. I just wonder if that factored into the second one, because he got smoked when he carried the football 2 or 3 plays prior.
I get that this game could have been close for longer. I mean, Ole Miss could have not scored at the end of the first half, and Vanderbilt got the ball to start the second half. But I wrote this right after, even during the end of the game, and I think I believe it even more strongly as we're talking, as I talked to Jeffrey, is that I took more positives out of today than anything else from Ole Miss because you knew that it was going to be very hard to get up emotionally for Vanderbilt. Your crowd was going to be 50% of the attendance, even on homecoming for the Commodores. It was a sleepy road environment, as Jeffrey talked about. Vanderbilt's not good. They've lost now 23 SEC games in a row, I think, something like that. Might already be a record, or the record's close, or whatever it is. It's all those different things you get behind, and they asserted their will and outscore them 42-8. They didn't panic. They go down, they get the score before half. They hit the long play. They come out of the break and just kind of dominate. And defensively, they make some adjustments at halftime. They swarm the football. They move to a four-man front defensively that made a ton of difference from a rush defense standpoint. Injuries are injuries, and we'll see what happens with that. But if they're not injured, I think today was a really high grade, because you look around college football and it's everywhere. Everybody's struggling in games that they shouldn't be. Everybody's having these letdown weeks. I mean, college football has never been as much a factor of coach, culture, and stability of emotions to just show up the same way every week and win games when so many teams are laying eggs. They were getting dominated physically because of some lethargy and scheme and everything, and they just kind of turned it on. And you look up and they cover the line, they score 52 points, even with that thing at the end of the game. I mean, I'm kind of giving them like a B plus for the day overall.
I tend to agree with that as well. I think the way you described it, stability of emotions, is a great way to put it, because to use a Hugh Freeze term, they got down 10 and they didn't blink, right? They just kept going about their business, playing the next play, all of that coach speak. But, it would have been easy to get down 10 points. They haven't really been in that situation this year and kind of freaked out. And, as we described earlier, that could have quickly gotten to 13 or 17 if things didn't go the right way. And they just kept their head down and kept chugging along. I thought that drive to end the half, capped off, kind of emphasized by the huge Mingo reception down by the goal line, was a really big drive, because that game, I think, feels probably differently if it's 20-13 or whatever it was at halftime, as opposed to 20-17. And then, as you mentioned, they really just imposed their will in the second half. I think Vanderbilt ran 18 offensive plays in the third quarter and gained 31 yards, and that's with a 5-yard gain on a meaningless run to end the quarter. So it was really, 17 plays, 26 yards. And Vanderbilt finally made a mistake with the weird backwards throw, and Ole Miss capitalized on it. So I'm with you. They're finding different ways to win games. This game had an entirely different identity to last week, and they found a way to win and win going away. And I think that's probably what good teams do as we enter this college football landscape, as you mentioned, where teams struggle every week with teams they're not supposed to, and you get weird results or 3.5 quarters that could look like a weird result. And so I'm with you. I thought there were more positives overall. This team still has a ton of question marks, but minus Alabama, with the way the West is shaking up, I don't know if anyone's very good. And so they're 6-0, and if you can just find a way to do that, 5 or God forbid 6 more times, you're probably going to be in pretty good shape at the end of the year. I don't necessarily think that will happen, but I did think there were more positives today, particularly in the second half. I mean, from Mingo, it was very clear they were emphasizing him, and they ran a couple of really interesting draw-ups in the second half that led to touchdowns for him. And I thought they played pretty well after a lethargic first half, and they deserve credit for that despite the struggles.
You said outside of Alabama, and while I agree, I'm watching Jalen Milroe, and
it's not great.
He's not a bad thrower, but he's not a good thrower. They don't go down the field with it. I mean, his best offense is running the football, and he can really run it. But I'll tell you, they're gettable right now. Now it's still going to take a good game. Nobody's going to luck into it. And we talk about stability of emotions. Alabama does that better than anybody in the country. They're everybody's Super Bowl, and they show up and they play well almost every damn week. But he just does not scare you at all. I mean, he just really doesn't.
No, and I think a lot of it's their offensive line. Alabama's offensive line, particularly as it pertains to pass blocking, at least from the eye test, doesn't seem that it's been great. So I agree. I mean, I say outside of Alabama just because I wasn't really convinced to write them off after they struggled in a really hostile environment against Texas a few weeks ago. They're clearly the best team. But I agree. I think they're more gettable than they've been in years past. And that game is in Oxford in November, and that's a hell of a lot better than playing in Tuscaloosa, obviously. So who knows? And that kind of leads me back to what I was talking about a second ago. Let's just kind of survive every week. If you can just find a way to continue to stack wins, groundbreaking analysis there, it's going to be good, because I think this league full of average teams or slightly above average teams or somewhere in there is going to eat itself a little bit. And hey, Ole Miss is entering the third week of October at 6-0. That's a pretty solid place to be.
First time since 2014. I haven't looked at the poll on who's lost ahead of them, but a chance of moving up past number 9 or wherever they're sitting right now. And I talked to Jeffrey about it for a few minutes. You're getting an Auburn team that I will be incredibly impressed if they were locked in for Ole Miss on Saturday. I mean, it's just one thing after another after another. You lose the game to LSU where it's kind of a heartbreaker, and you do show up for Harsin and play well for a half relative to your ability. You sort of kind of hang around while Georgia shoots itself in the foot over and over and over again, and then you get popped. Your coach is definitely out at some point, even if it's at the end of the year. You're on a third-string quarterback, depending on how you want to talk about that competition. It will be one of Harsin's miracles if they show up completely and utterly engaged for Ole Miss. I mean, the schedule's not doing Ole Miss any favors by playing Arkansas later when KJ Jefferson's probably healthy. But it's absolutely doing Ole Miss a favor by when it's catching Auburn. It's just hard. We've covered those kind of teams before in Oxford. It's hard to see Auburn not being somewhat listless if Ole Miss will jump out, play well in the first half, and get ahead of the Tigers.
Yeah, and even if they are engaged, they don't have a quarterback. And
No.
it's impossible to win in this league without some semblance of quarterback play, and they literally have none of it. I get that Ashford can run a little bit, but I mean, it's fully on display the last couple of weeks. It's just they can't do anything offensively. It changes the calculus on everything they're trying to do, and by that I mean they can't really do a whole hell of a lot of anything. So I'm with you, but also if they are engaged, does that matter that much? I think Ole Miss will beat them pretty handily if Ole Miss shows up and plays well. And I know Ole Miss doesn't beat Auburn often, and I get all of that going in, but I just think this year is different in that sense. And the schedule does not do Ole Miss any favors in the back half with who they have to face, but I'm not sure this team would be 6-0 if some of that was flipped, not the entire schedule, but just if they'd had to play in Alabama or an LSU the second or third game of the year as this team kind of finds its identity and works out some kinks and all of that. I think overall the way this schedule is laid out is an enormous positive for Ole Miss. So we'll see what happens next week, but I don't think Ole Miss will have a ton of trouble with Auburn, because on top of that, I know the kickoff time has been a real point of discussion amongst the message board and people that followed the program or whatever. I think that probably works in Ole Miss's favors a little bit too, because as you just outlined everything that Auburn's going through, now they have to go get up for an 11 a.m. game on the road after the last couple of weeks. There's a million reasons why I'm not an SEC athlete, but I'd have a hard time not getting on that field and being like, no thanks.
Yeah, and the Auburn thing is real. I mean, Ole Miss has not beaten Auburn very much, but Lane has sort of removed all those kind of things. I mean, Ole Miss, after they win today, they're 17-3 in their last 20. We keep doing the stats and adding a game. I mean, that's since the 50s. They've now won 13 home games in a row. I mean, and I get that Ole Miss fans are obviously excited. You went to a Sugar Bowl last year, all those things. I understand. But I don't know if while you're in the moment like this, everybody fully grasps the improvements and where this program is. When he took that job in 2019, if you just said, hey, you're only a season away, frankly, a season where they would have gone 8-4 had it been a non-COVID year because they went 4-4 in the SEC, basically. That you're going to go 17-3 and 20, win 13 in a row, go to a Sugar Bowl, be ranked in the top 10 the next year. I mean, the mindset has completely shifted where the goals and perceptions are higher and have raised. And it's happened so quickly. I don't even think everybody's fully taken that step back and going, holy hell at how fast this has happened and what this looks like. It's just sort of a normalization of it. And it is completely just the normal thing for this program, which is a credit to Lane and a credit to everybody involved and everything else. But I mean, this is pretty lofty stuff that in some ways we sort of just mention and then move on from.
They're winning games like last week. I know we didn't talk last week on the post game, but they found a way to win those games and force 2 turnovers. Like they're winning games like they did in the Egg Bowl last year and at Tennessee. And today, I guess, would have been sort of another example. There's plenty of decent Ole Miss teams to good Ole Miss teams that would have gotten in that situation down 10. And you would have probably known or at least had a pretty big hunch that this thing was about to get pretty weird. And Ole Miss didn't necessarily end up on the right side of it historically when games get weird like that. And today it turned into a 25-point or 32-point blowout or whatever the final score was, I guess 52-28. I think that's indicative of it. And it's something that's hard to describe. And I asked Buchanan about it this week. I asked Nick Broker about it too. It's just they start to believe that the good things are going to happen when they get in scenarios like that and they get late in games. They make plays instead of getting paralyzed by the moment. And I know that sounds a little corny, but I think it's true. And I think they gain confidence that good things are going to happen when they get late in games like that. The more and more they start winning these things. And look, in the SEC West, 17-3 in your last 20 games with an all-conference 10-game season and COVID mixed in there, I think at some point. I guess that wouldn't quite be mixed in, but you get my point. That's a pretty damn good record, and there's just not a lot of programs doing that. I mean, look, everyone's searching for consistency in college football these days as you're firing coaches and buyouts mount up, and it's a rarer and rarer thing to achieve. And whatever this team's flaws are, as a program, they've certainly achieved that stability, and they've had a chance and will have a chance in every single game they play this year. And I'm not sure you could have said that about an Ole Miss team from 2016 on. And it's rarer than people may think or want to believe because we all get captivated by the moment and everything. But it's really, really impressive. And, they're going to have another really good chance to add another win to that total next week.
Look, in 2009, that was a team that went to the Cotton Bowl in the second straight year, and they started the year fourth in the country. I still remember when they won their sixth game, and Ole Miss announced in the crack, over the PA, Ole Miss is now bowl eligible, and you get the huge cheer. I mean, I haven't said bowl eligible one time on a podcast the entire season. That is a complete and utter just thing on the way to other things. I mean, it's the football version of when Mike goes, yeah, I'm not worried about the SEC tournament. That's not really what we're doing here. You know what I mean? I mean, it's
a great point. I mean, when's the last time you thought about it? I didn't even think about it. I guess they got bowl eligible today.
Yeah, they're going to a bowl. Woo! Okay.
Bowl
Awesome.
streak. Yeah, I mean, you don't even think about it. I think that's as good of an indication as anything that expectations have changed. They got to 6-0 in bowl eligibility today, and I didn't really think about it until you just said that, nor I doubt as many other people, because the expectations are much higher.
Had it been a home game, Ole Miss would not have done that over the loudspeaker today. No, whatever.
No, I don't think so.
And if so, Lane would have made fun of it.
Probably fire an intern. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He loves making fun of some of this. He loves looking at Kyle over there in the corner after he kind of smirks about some stat or whatever they had, which always cracks me up when I watch it. But you're right. It's times are changing and expectations are changing, and it's totally warranted with the way this program has been transformed under Lane Kiffin in a very short amount of time, because it's not like the thing Nutt stepped into in 2008 where it's like, all right, this team has a bunch of talent. Can you be confident with it? I anticipated this being a longer rebuild, as did I think everyone else, and it's remarkable to watch unfold.
Addison, appreciate the live stream comment. I've got it highlighted here. He says, Ole Miss is favored against everyone left on the schedule with the exception of LSU and Bama, according to ESPN. If that holds true, back-to-back 10-win seasons, 10-2 seasons. So, yeah, I mean, you're talking about probably from a Vegas or at least a computer standpoint, Ole Miss is halfway through the season, and the computers are picking them to win double-digit games in the regular season for back-to-back seasons. I mean, that's it.
And LSU, after what you saw today, are you worried? I say worried. That game looked Tiger
Well,
State
see, that's the thing where the computer to me doesn't make a lot of sense. I think LSU is the I think that's the fourth hardest game left. I think it's Alabama still number one just because it's Alabama, and then it's State at home or at Arkansas ahead of LSU and Baton Rouge.
And isn't there a chance you could put A&M over in there, an argument that it's the fifth most difficult game? I mean, look, I'd probably end up siding with LSU if you really wanted to take some time and look at it side by side. But, yeah, it's fourth or arguably the fifth hardest left, I think.
And they're both on the road. Yeah. You can make that argument.
And A&M's got a good defense. Like, they can get after it from a pass rush standpoint. And, I don't know what they are offensively as I watch them try to run some kind of reverse with Haynes King blocking. But I'd probably put them on equal footing, them going to A&M and them going to LSU.
Yeah. All right, bud. I'm going to talk to you tomorrow, so I'll get more with Brian. We'll have that up probably late tomorrow or Monday morning on all of our podcast channels and everywhere you listen to our show. And then a normal week as well with him when he gets his normal co-host back. So appreciate it. Have a good night. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Wait, I got one more thing.
Yeah,
that was an all-MIS touchdown for the cover. Dent to a prep kid. Just would throw that out there.
Who is the last MAIS running back to get a touchdown in the SEC before that? Do you have any idea?
No clue, but I would maybe say Isaiah Wooler. Or no, Ely.
Oh, duh.
Had to
Sorry.
be.
Never
He's a
mind.
prep
Yeah,
kid.
my fault. Sorry.
But
Whoops.
Isaiah Woolard probably after that. I think he had a touchdown against Vanderbilt a couple years ago. But we were living in the glory days of private school football. I just had to get that in there.
I mean, look, when Lane needed the cover and he needed the points, that's where he went.
The math kids had to.
Just saying. I mean, that's where he went. So it's there. Enjoy the night. Talk to you soon.
Yep, be good. Have a good one.
Later. Was Brian Rippey joining us? Neil is out of the hotel. Let me tell him just to let me know when he is back. And I will open up the lines for a second. Someone wants to call while we're waiting on him. Nothing else to do. So I've got those here. Let me find the hotline. 662-259-7556 is the number. If you want to call and chat with me, that is the number to do so. Again, we will call Neil whenever he gets situated. We're not far away from that, but the line's open if you want to call. Again, 662-259-7556 is the number. Alabama and Texas A&M still scoreless. It's been a fairly boring game, frankly, to this point. Both offenses have bogged down. And then South Carolina, Kentucky. Who's on the line?
Hey, Chase, it's Mark. How are you tonight?
Mark, how are you? Good.
I'm doing pretty well tonight. Good ball game today.
It was a good game. I mean, not all of it, but some of it. There's several good games today. It was a fairly entertaining day of football, even though it was a lot of blowouts. I mean, I thought the morning slate was interesting. I sort of laughed at myself that you had LSU, Tennessee, Florida, Oklahoma, and Texas all playing, and the game that I was most focused on was TCU, Kansas.
I watched a lot of TCU, Kansas. I watched a lot of Tennessee, LSU. For some reason, I couldn't take that off the TV, even when Tennessee was killing them.
Were you cheering for Tennessee?
I wanted Tennessee to beat them, but I wanted LSU to make it a game. Something about watching a game in Tiger Stadium when it's, close and tense and all that is pretty exciting. But I definitely wanted Tennessee to win the game.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about Ole Miss and Vanderbilt today?
So there was some discussion among our group watching the game, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, that Lane was playing chess in the first half, getting ready to go into the gauntlet that we're going to go into over the back half of the season. We haven't had to play from behind this year, and so that, he and Partridge and everybody set the team up to play from behind today.
Well, that would have been chess. That would have been 3D chess to the highest degree, considering when Vanderbilt got the ball. But I do – it's kind of what I was talking about with Brian. I think there are things that can be taken as positives from that because they were in that situation.
I think
obviously in the
right.
last minute against Kentucky, that was a losable game. But from the standpoint of being down 2 scores and having to come back and, not let it extend, there's a lot you had to learn there. I mean, for a team that has some young elements, but also a team that just hasn't played together a ton because of all the portal guys.
It's easy to say it as a result of what happened today, but Vanderbilt does look like a better team. I mean, it's all in the context of who they are, coming off 0-8 and 2-10, but they are a better team. I think you and Jeffrey were talking about them being more athletic. Ray Davis is actually really good.
Yeah,
they had a receiver out there that was good. Quarterback
Shepard's
was
good.
Pretty solid.
AJ Swan is not bad, and he's definitely not bad for a young kid. He's fine.
I agree.
I mean, he's completely fine.
Go ahead. I have a theory that I want your opinion on, and this has nothing to do with today's game, but it does have to do with football. I'm a stats and analytics guy. Pretty much every time a team comes out to kick off, I think they should kick an onside kick, but I know that that's probably not a good idea. But I have always wondered something. So when it gets late in the game, the only thing that can hurt a team is a kickoff return for a touchdown after they've scored. What do you often see at that point in time? You often see a squib kick, right?
Sure. Uh-huh.
The low kick on the ground, can't return for a touchdown. So why do kickers, if a squib kick is safe and it's going to keep the return team from returning it for a touchdown, these kickers are pretty much soccer players, and they're really accurate in their kicks. They're really good at what they do. Why don't we kick squib kicks? And by we, I don't mean Ole Miss. I mean anybody. Why do kickers not kick squib kicks right at the chest of one of the upbacks in the hopes that it hits and bounce back. We got a live ball and we can recover it.
Would it bounce? Well, A, you would have to hit them, and B, would it bounce? Would it bounce off of them where they didn't catch it? I mean, I have no idea.
So
I'm trying to think through it a little bit, but
they're mostly offensive linemen, so I'm going under the assumption that they're not going to catch it.
okay.
If it doesn't hit them,
Now, here's your
it's just a
thing: you
squib
do it
kick.
once, they're going to put their hands team on the field for kickoff return next time.
But that's a good thing for kickoff coverage, right?
So then you start just mixing it up or kicking it deep or whatever, I guess.
Yeah. There's no way I'm the only person in the world that's ever thought about this. But if you smoke a line drive right in an up back and it misses them, you've got a squib kick. And if it hits them, you've got an opportunity.
It's true. And I think the reason they don't squib kick in general is that while, yes, you don't return it for a touchdown as often, you also are probably giving them the ball with a 35 to 40 most times.
There's truth to that.
There's probably
But at the
you're
end of
losing
the day,
10
the
to 15 yards
difference
simply on what's going on.
Well, going back to the math nerd, the difference between expected points scored starting from the 25 and 35 is not that great.
Sure, of course. Now, look, there's another level of analytics that coaches have not gotten to simply because the eye test does not fit it where they think they're going to get yelled at by fans. Or they don't believe in it because the eye test doesn't fit it, one or the other.
There's a fear of embarrassment for making a bad decision. And
it's one of the
Lane
things that makes Lane one of the better coaches, though, because he does point that out and go, hey, you still just got to make the decision. You can't be mortified because you're going to get made fun of in a press conference.
So I watched LSU go for it multiple times today. And admittedly, I did not watch Notre Dame a whole lot under Brian Kelly. But I'm guessing that Brian Kelly went for it more frequently today than he ever would have with Notre Dame. I watched Mike Leach go for it more today on 4th and short. I'm wondering if Lane is starting to rub off on the rest of the league.
It's a couple things. I'm sure analytics in general are permeating through the league to a higher degree. I also think there is some comfort in a crowd where once coaches start doing it, more do it because it's the acceptable thing. I mean, we're not too far away from the really, really conservative coaches being the ones that are just completely the ones made fun of.
Yeah.
And I think we're close to that anyway. I think that the guy who's just constantly kicking field goals and punting, he comes off like a complete dinosaur right now.
Yeah. Bear Bryant was, I mean, it's related but unrelated. Bear Bryant was famous for saying he would be the second coach in the league to have an African-American player, but he would never be the first.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not the same thing, but it is. I mean, I understand what you mean. It's nobody wants to be the first anything. Everybody's always terrified for being the first, whatever. Yeah, I mean, hell, I know reporters that go into paralysis, even if they have a scoop, because they want to see somebody else do it first, just in case they're wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it's a very real thing.
Well, I for whatever reason, the game was going poorly early today, and I was never really worried about it. I don't know why. But it worked out, and I think at the end of the day, it was good for the team to have that experience. You know, Auburn's going to come into town in whatever shape they're in. They're not good, and dead man walking. But it's starting to feel like, and I think I have the schedule right. Auburn, then LSU and A&M in some order. It's like 9-0 with Bama coming to town, right?
It's at least in view. Yeah, I mean, you got some games coming up, but yeah, I mean, we're at least sort of kind of getting into that realm. Now there's a bye week between A&M and Alabama, so God help us all for those 2 weeks.
Well, we were 4-0 with Kentucky coming to town for 6 months with you and Neil, so we're 3 weeks out. We can be 9-0 with Bama.
That's fair. All right. I'll eat that one. You're right. So, that's
all right. Be good. Y'all have fun tonight.
All right. Thank you. Again, 662-259-7556 while we're waiting on Mr. McCready. Had the stats pulled. Go to that again, 662-259-7556. Let's see. Stats, or can I put this up here? Yeah, okay, I put it on the screen too. Jackson Dart, we mentioned this at the top of the show, 25 of 32, 448, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That is the 5th all-time passing game in Ole Miss history. The record's 513. That was Matt Corral against South Carolina in the clipboard game. That is the record, 513. But Dart's 448 is the 5th all-time. He, completed 78% of his passes. Again, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Zach Evans, a really good day. We didn't talk about him a lot, but he went 11 carries for 80 yards and a score. Had a long of 24. Judkins finished 11 for 46. He was pretty bogged down early. I think he was barely over 2 yards per carry through most of the game, although he did score twice, including the big second half touchdown where the Vanderbilt kid met him at the goal line and essentially just tried to shoulder him up, and that didn't work. Who's on the line?
Charles.
Charles, how are you?
I'm doing great tonight. Chase, how are you?
I'm all right. That's you. What'd you think?
I just want to add one little something, and I'm going to hang up and listen. I wished we were a little sluggish to start out today. I think we had a little attitude adjustment at the half, came out, and we're a completely different football team and one going away. I just wished our fans would take them one game at a time and quit talking about we're going to be 7-0, 9-0 with so-and-so coming to town. They forget where we've been and where we're going. Just quit talking about future games and taking things for granted, and let's just play them one at a time. Our players don't need to, as one particular coach says, rat poison. We don't need to get into that game. Let's just play hard and keep having fun. That's all. I'll hang up and listen to your comment.
Appreciate it, bud. Thanks, Charles. Good to hear from you. Comment real quick. By the way, Alabama scores, goes up 7-0 against Texas A&M, pending the kick. It's 6-0 right now. I do think it dovetails back into. Hold on one second, caller. I think it dovetails back into what I was saying a minute ago, though, is 17-3 in the last 20. Enjoy every one of them. I mean, today was a whatever point win against Vanderbilt. As a fan, I mean, just take it. Spend a couple days. Do the next one. I mean, I do think it's one of those deals where that's how you do start. And I don't mean like looking ahead as in, look, the fan base is not necessarily impacting games at all. I don't mean it from that standpoint. But just as you build, there is a lot of fun and wins and week to week of builds, and as far as that goes. Who are we talking to? Sorry about that.
This is Boomer from New Hampshire.
How you doing, bud?
Good. How are you?
I'm lovely.
Good. Can we talk about the O-line play?
Sure. What'd you think about
it? It's a tale of two halves, right? First half was I've seen better by varsity high school play, and second half was rather decent, right?
I said at the top of the show, and maybe I'm wrong, I thought they were moving a lot of guys around in the first half. I thought I saw a couple people at different positions than usual. I really want to look tomorrow or into Monday morning if they had more volatility up front than they have in past weeks, because it does kind of seem like that all the way around.
Right.
Look, yeah, they did not get a lot of push early in the game. I think that affected everything, because when Ole Miss, at least going in, when some of those early scripts didn't work as far as inside running, it put more pressure on the passing game. But Vanderbilt was also stacking it. I mean, Ole Miss needed to throw them out of it, which they did in the second half and did a better job. They didn't do a very good job of that in the first half. So I think it was scheme-based to an extent, but it remains the one thing that Kentucky on the defensive side showed a little of it. Offensively, Kentucky was not very good. But the one challenge that Ole Miss probably faces is still the really physical middle of the line of scrimmage teams on both sides of the ball. And I think that's something that we just don't know yet. And look, we're halfway through the schedule, so maybe there aren't a lot of teams that can do that. But in some ways, that is one thing I'm still sort of waiting to see when it gets into a really tough game in the second half, and you kind of see where it goes.
Right, but how many schemes do you need when the center snaps the ball over the quarterback's head like 10 feet?
It did get better. I mean, you're right. Look, I mean, snapping is an issue. I mean, it's not going to be an all-pro level quarterback center exchange this year. It's just not. But I did think. Well, here's the thing: it's almost kind of like an umpire in the second half. And to your point, is you're right. I didn't even notice the snaps. I didn't even think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Which means okay, it was whatever. They just played. It was part of the rhythm and the motion and the way their offense works on some of their play calling is that if that center quarterback exchange is bad, they can't even run the plays. And in the second half, they were able to get into some of those rhythms because, I thought the snapping was completely acceptable and fine at that point. He was not having to look all over the world for the ball.
Right, but once you get into I would say, the deep SEC play, how much, like how enough is enough? It's like when we play against Alabama and Texas A&M and Auburn, the deep part of our SEC the schedule, like we can't afford mistakes, right?
Sure, but unless there's some, Caleb is not going to get 100% healthy during the season, and there's not an automatic answer on who you're putting there. Right. And again, I'm not even arguing. I just think it is what it is. I think it's one of those things where, yes, if they lose some games, you'll point to 2 or 3 different things as the reason why, and that's very possible. That's one of the reasons why they might lose a football game. It's something that only gets better with more depth and more recruiting and more experience as time goes on. So yeah, I'm not disagreeing. You're exactly right. I just think they're in a bind because you have the roster you have, and it just you got to make do with the best that it is. And if you get this level of improvement over the next week or 2 weeks, we probably at least stop talking about it to the point that it's a non-issue. They just need, look, it's 2 different things. They need a true center to snap the ball, but also there aren't a lot of centers that translate from high school to college. It's very common for high school offensive linemen to play something other than center and then be a college center. So look, I'm not blaming Eli Acker when he's had bad snaps because he's new to it. It's brand new. It takes some time. You've got a 300-pound nose tackle over your nose. That's something that's going to take a bit of adjustment to. However, in saying that, it's pretty common for guards to morph into centers over time.
Right. It's just like, how many snaps can we afford to lose at that point?
And maybe 1 if it's at the wrong time. Yeah.
I don't think. When we play against Bama, I don't think we afford any, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's it Caleb Warren? Is it Eli Acker? Do we pull somebody else? It's like, what's going on? Because I watched the first half, and it was, I think, was it like the 4th, 5th play was snapped way over Jackson Dart's head.
Yeah.
So,
but I don't recall anything past that.
No, that's why I said stale 2 halves, because the first half, I think I turned the game on, and I was just like, oh, here we go again.
Mm-hmm.
And the second half, I turned it on, and I was like, this is Ole Miss football.
Yeah, sure.
So, which half of the center is going to show up? Which half of, I guess, Caleb Warren at this point is going to show up?
And I wonder a little bit. This is just so far speculation. I don't know unless we talk to him at some point this week. I give him more of a pass with it being on the first series. That you're back in an adjustment, and that's when it happened. Like, in some ways, as weird as it sounds, that makes more sense to me if it's on the 4th series and you've already gotten into the rhythm of the game, and then you just screw one up.
Right. I'm only speaking because I'm the retired high school football O-lineman that got moved over to center. But it's like, to me, it didn't take that long to transition. Because I got pulled over to center at one point, and it took me a week to snap the ball more than 5 yards. But as we're 6-0, we're moving into the deep SEC play. It's like we have to find a answer at that point. I figured at this point under a Lane Kiffin offense, we would have a answer to snapping the ball more than 5 yards downfield.
Yeah, you probably didn't have an SEC nose guard over you most of the time. It's probably a little more complicated.
SEC nose guard, but Lamar Jackson was in my district, and I played against Khalil Mack, and I played against Justin Simmons, and I played NFL talent.
Okay.
Right? It took me a week to figure it out. And again, apples to apples kind of thing, but it's how long is it going to take, right?
Yeah, and I honestly don't. I think Caleb being healthy fixes the issue. Otherwise, I don't think you're going to see some huge improvement over the course of the season. I think it's going to be where it's at right now.
As long as you get the second small forward, so.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Perfect.
Fair enough. Appreciate it for the call. Thank you. That's our first call from that state, so appreciate that. I'll get a map and start crossing them off over the course of the show. I never really thought about that, but I think that's the first one from there. Let's see. Still waiting on Neil, so time for another call or two if you'd like to do that. Again, 662-259-7556 is the number. I mentioned the rush yardage. Yeah, Matt Jones gets those 3 carries late for the 3 yards and a touchdown. J.J. Henry had 1 carry on a jet sweep for -1 yard. And then from receiving standpoint, Mingo 9 for 247. Again, that is a school record. Elijah Moore had the previous record at 236 or 238. I forget which number it was. Elijah took him 14 catches against Vanderbilt in 2020. Mingo does it 9 catches for 247, 2 scores in that one, a long of 72. He also had one of 71. Watkins went for 61 as well. And then Watkins 7 catches for 117 yards in that one. Who am I talking to?
Hey, Chase, John Hale in San Luis Obispo, California.
Oh, there you go. Got another. How are you, John?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm hanging in all right. Just A&M can't score, so I'm trying to flip between that game. I was actually more interested in Kentucky, South Carolina, but it's at the half right now.
We're doing the same thing. But I just wanted to chime in. Jonathan Mingo had an incredible game today, and no one seems to have noticed.
You know, in some ways, he was the offensive player of the game because, Dart obviously had the 400 and whatever yards, and I was mentioning Mingo kind of right when I was answering your call, is that it was a lot of catch and run. I mean, I'll pull that too the next couple of days to see from an air yard standpoint because Mingo on 2 of his catches and Watkins' catch, that a lot of the total yards covered was done on the ground running versus through the air. No, look, Mingo, he's been a talented guy since high school. He is physical.
Absolutely.
He blocks really well in the corner. He does so many things that don't get talked about in the run game. His body control has improved. He goes up. He high points the football. He wins a lot of one-on-ones. He wins a lot of contested catches. And then, as Jeffrey mentioned earlier in the show, his speed, because he's healthy, has gotten back into a max level. And he does have the ability to take the top off. And it's a matchup problem because if you're not bracketing him, if you're going to run with him, you're definitely having to use a corner. But the point is, a lot of corners, he's going to manhandle and be able to do things shorter and in the intermediate part of the game. So it's very hard to cover him at all 3 levels with the same guy unless you're talking about one of the more elite SEC defensive backs.
Absolutely. It was just great to see him healthy again, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And even though it was against Vanderbilt, he made a huge difference. And hopefully he can keep it going and the Rebs can improve week to week. And congratulations on your book, man. I'm really happy for you. And
thank you.
We'll see what happens down the road.
Absolutely. Auburn in 1 week. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Chase.
Thanks to John. So we went New Hampshire, California with back-to-back calls. I mean, about as coast to coast as you can do that. Got tweeted at yesterday, I think, with a book sold in Washington. So MPW Digital, rebelgrove.com. Covering a lot of ground here. Finishing up the thing, Evans, 2 catches, 15 yards. Trigg, the 1 catch where he injures his shoulder to whatever extent. Again, I still don't know anything about that. 1 catch, 28 yards on that one. Judkins, 1 catch, 14 yards. And then Jalen Robinson, 1 catch, 1 yard. 2 targets for him. Mingo was targeted 11 times, turned those 9 catches out of 11 targets. A.J. Swan for Vanderbilt, 27 of 38, 281, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I thought he was really good today. I mean, Swan's got a future. I mean, whether it's at Vanderbilt or transfer portal or whatever happens, he was good. Ray Davis, we make a lot of jokes about him being maybe my next running back crush, but he entered the day in the top 5 in the SEC in rushing, 27 carries, 105 yards, touchdown. He only averaged 3.9, but he was a workhorse for them, did a good job. They had not much else to speak of in a run game standpoint at all. And then from receiving, the Shepherd kid, nine catches, 87 yards, and a score out of 14 targets. They targeted Shepherd 14 times today, so that is interesting. Neil is back. We'll call him in 1 second. Let me tell him that real quick. Yeah, Shepherd 9 for 87, and then McGowan goes 7 for 104. He had 8 targets. So Vanderbilt 22 targets out of 2 receivers. They also had 2 guys with 6 targets each there in that one. Yeah, A&M first and goal now. Stuff pretty good on first and goal. I don't know if you guys are a play ahead of me or not. Let's get Neil on the line. Touchdown A&M. Got a tie game.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear? You can't hear me? Hey.
Yeah, I hear you now. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Okay,
We're
cool.
doing like a Verizon commercial or something. I said A&M scored touchdown, 7-7.
Oh, okay. I've not seen a single play of that game. I literally just walked into my room.
Yeah, Alabama scored a few minutes ago, and now A&M with a 5-yard touchdown throw and catch, 7-7 in the second quarter.
It's almost like Alabama's not nearly as good without Bryce Young.
They are
like quarterback play matters or something.
They are a touch fallible right now. I think that is a very clear thing here. Is look, they might still be the best team in the West, but it's somewhat of a. Ole Miss got a lot of schedule breaks. They're catching Auburn at a good time. There's lots of positives you can say about them. They're not catching Alabama and Arkansas when you would want to catch Alabama and Arkansas. You'd like to play them right now tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure.
Both of them.
Yeah. Probably a good thing not playing Mississippi State right now.
Well, that's a good point. They're playing all right.
Yeah.
I had a perfect day going in Neil's picks until Lane decided to score with 20 seconds left.
Well, I sent down a text asking him to help me, so.
He did. Jeffrey believes that he would not have done that had Clark Lee not gone for 2 and onside kicked.
I agree. I think had Lee not done the onside kick, they wouldn't have they wouldn't have done it. Now that being said, he really wanted to get the record for Jonathan, and so that's why they threw the ball there. But
he could have taken the knee on the 2 or the 3 or whatever, though.
He could have, but I'm sure that's his responsibility. You didn't have to onside kick.
Yeah. No. Hey, look.
And you didn't have to go for
I'm
2.
going to play.
Yeah.
And he had Dent and Matt Jones into the game.
Yeah, but I don't have a problem with any of it. I mean, I don't have a problem with Clark doing what he did. I mean, you're very clearly trying to establish some culture. I was just kind of outside of Vanderbilt's locker room there for a little while. I was waiting for Chris to get me, and you can kind of overhear some of the conversations with Vanderbilt kids, and I mean, they're the effort to rebuild, to establish and rebuild and culture and that kind of thing there is a really tall hill to climb, and you can't stop kind of pressing a little bit if you're in Clark Lee's shoes. So I don't have any problem with either coach doing what they did.
Mm-hmm. Do we get any indication at all on Troy Brown or Michael Trigg?
No.
Okay. What was your guess?
I couldn't tell on Troy. On Trigg, my guess is that it was a significant shoulder injury. By the way, I put the binoculars on him, and I was watching it the whole way.
It was hanging.
It was kind of hanging, and they took him into the room. The first doctor worked on him, and then they brought over more people, and then they took him in and took the pads off. And look, you hate to guess on injuries because it could just be nothing, and but my guess is that he separated it.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means, I don't know. And I couldn't tell on Troy at all. And you know how that is, Chase. You're in a press box and you start getting to that point in the game where you're writing a lot.
Yeah.
And so you're not. You're trying to. I had a column that was sort of pre-written, and frankly, that game was such that I felt like that couldn't stand alone. So I sort of did an analysis piece with it that was more Vanderbilt game centered. And so I was kind of banging that out at the same time I was doing that game story with notes on the bottom. And so, I didn't even get the stuff about Mingo, it being a record in the story. So I guess I probably need to go back and edit that in, but, I was just kind of busy. And so I don't even know that I really could tell anything on Troy. And I was sitting up there next to Suss and, Jameer Gibbs. God, he's quick. I was sitting up there next to Suss and Katz and them, and they didn't mention it either. So I think we all sort of missed it. And then by the time we realized he wasn't out there, we didn't know.
It looked like there's at least, again, I know nothing. I'm only watching on television. There was the possibility of it being a stinger for Troy, the way it kind of came off. That's what my initial guess was stinger.
Yeah. And Lane's not going to, when I covered the Saints, Sean Payton would open every touchdown Alabama. Sean Payton would open every press conference with, here's a rundown on the injuries. Lane's not
That's
doing
not
that.
a thing, is it?
No.
There's a couple ways to look at this. Vanderbilt dominated the lines of scrimmage in the first half, forced Ole Miss into some four-man front on defense that worked. Ole Miss made some adjustments. All the adjustments paid off. It was a bludgeoning in the third quarter to put the game away. Partridge continues to do a good job from a coaching standpoint. Dart got some rhythm in the second half. I mean, forget the records and the points and all that stuff, but just the offense looked like you kind of think the offense is supposed to look like. The run game with Evans did open it up a little bit. I've said this a couple times, but I want to get your take on it. And I don't think I'm being Pollyanna. They showed a lot of maturity being down 10, going, get the score, and then putting the game away. Something that Lane had been wanting was, hey, get the knockout when you can do it. And they had to overcome that as well. There's probably more positives and negatives, barring injuries, out of this game, where we got another piece of the overall puzzle as they head into Auburn next week.
Yeah, I think so. I wrote this in my column, so I feel like I'm sort of repetitive. But if you've watched college football this year, you can't be surprised when a team like Vanderbilt gives a team like Ole Miss fits for a couple of quarters. That just cannot be surprising at this point in the season. We see it everywhere in every league. You can't be surprised when it happens to Ole Miss. And then you have to first, before you dive into the Ole Miss end of it, I think you have to give Vanderbilt some credit. They had a good plan. They played. They came out ready to play. They had a weekend off. They were fresh. They played with a bunch of energy. DeAndre Prince admitted that, Ole Miss kind of looked at him as a lesser opponent, which they're kids. They're not football robots. All of those things played in. And then, look, that quarterback's good. I mean, I don't know how closely you got to watch it on TV, but he's a good player. He makes some really nice throws, and they've got a really good scheme for him. They're going to have a hard time keeping him. I think he's going to have opportunities. His phone's going to ring. But, they did some good things, and they built that lead, and they were playing with some confidence. And even at 20-10, there was no part of me that thought Ole Miss was going to lose the game. In fact, someone sent me a text like, hey, Ole Miss, I bet you $10 Ole Miss is going to lose this game. And I said, bet.
Yeah.
And I sent my Venmo later. I'll take that bet. Ole Miss was going to win the game. I never thought that. But I did think coming back and getting that touchdown at the end of the first half was big. Kind of told Vanderbilt, hey, y'all know this isn't going to happen, right? And then the way they dominated the third quarter. I mean, who knows? Lane joked about it was a brilliant halftime speech, but I think what they did was they went in and said, "Come on, we got to play. This isn't going to be easy. You got to show up." And I liked one of the answers that I think it was DeAndre Prince, but it might have been Jonathan Mingo said. I think maybe it was Jonathan. He said, "Can't do that again. You can't have a half like that again." And it's going to be tempting this week, to look at Auburn and go, "Oh, well, they suck," and Georgia beat them by 32. They hadn't beaten anybody, and they're team chaos, and you can't play like that. You got to go get them. And then if you do go get them, it's going to be tempting to look at LSU, which, by the way, probably isn't going to be 2:30 now. It's going to be tempting to look at LSU and go, they're not good. And anybody that's been around that league knows that, but you're going into that stadium to play them, and they have players, and you can get beat. I think today was a good thing for Ole Miss. I think it would have, had they just blown Vanderbilt off the field, if the third quarter had happened in the first quarter, this team might be a little full of itself. Instead, this team got to have a learning experience and a win, which is always a good thing, because they're getting ready to go into a second half of the season where they enter it as, I don't know what they'll jump up to. They were 9. They'll be, 8, 7. They're going to be in the national title conversation this week when people start having those conversations. Ole Miss is going to be in the scroll.
There's going to be a story up there that goes, can Ole Miss or Tennessee knock off Alabama or Georgia or whatever?
Yeah, can Ole Miss? Can Ole Miss or Tennessee get to the playoff? That's going to be the conversation, and the answer is yeah. But to do it, they can't have the first half where they don't show against, you have this first half in Baton Rouge or in Fayetteville, and you're probably not surviving it.
No,
I guess.
No.
Although I'm not. I mean, who knows how good those teams are? I mean, look, we do this thing every year in the league, and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, is the league good? Is the league not good? I don't know. I mean, Alabama's a good team, but without Bryce Young, they're not a great team. A&M's nowhere close to what people hyped them up to be. LSU got blown out today by Tennessee, who I think is very good, but still, Arkansas played without Jefferson and got blown out. I don't know what State is. I think State's pretty good. State probably looks back on the second half of the LSU game and goes, what the hell was that? They probably think they should be 6-0. And then, look, I think Ole Miss is good. I asked Lane Kiffin tonight, how good can this team be? And he said, we're not talking about championships right now. We've got to get a lot better, which I think is an honest statement. I think it's true.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of odds you giving Tennessee Saturday. We'll talk about it all week.
Strong.
Nobody's losing ahead of Ole Miss, by the way, in the polls unless Alabama loses this game. Everybody else has one.
Okay. I mean,
I don't know what Clemson's doing, but yes.
Yeah. They don't. It doesn't matter at all. I think Tennessee's got a real shot. I mean, that place is going to be a zoo. They got a real shot. Hooker's playing exceptional football right now. I mean, and look, how good is Tennessee playing? I mean, if Tennessee were to beat Alabama in Knoxville and Hooker has a big game, those are a couple of big ifs now, but he would be in the Heisman conversation.
Oh, 100%. I think he's there now. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, he's having a special season. Defensively, I wonder what they can do. But if I'm Alabama, I got to figure out a way for Bryce Young to get on the field.
Without him, they're completely susceptible. There's no, it's not.
Yeah, without him, I really like Tennessee's chances.
Without him, Vegas has a hard time with a line next week. What do you do with that?
Well,
because you could make the argument for Tennessee -2, frankly.
Oh, that's a scoop. Oh, you can't fall down. Yeah. When was the last time Alabama wasn't favored? I guess Georgia.
I guess if they weren't,
I
don't know.
I mean,
that's a hell of a. By the way, the lack of parity. They just had that trivia question up. There are only 5 active head coaches with a national title. 5. That's it.
Saban, Fisher, Dabo, Kirby, and
one more. He's not at the school he won the title at.
Yeah.
Mac Brown.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that. It was 20 years ago.
Yeah. That's it. Well, it's true. Tennessee could actually split Bama and Georgia and have a shot.
What did you think today? Are the callers mostly negative or positive?
Been fine. Everybody's everybody's looking ahead. I found it. Like a friend of ours called in and said, enjoy every week. And I don't think fans are impacting the games, but I do think there's a certain part of Ole Miss has done this so fast that the fan expectation is just on, hey, get to the playoff, do this. And I understand it. I mean, that's where I would be too. But there is
Sure.
sort of, hey, you're 17-3. Like, smell the roses for a minute. Like, you're running
we're
the
not that
risk
far.
of looking too far ahead and not going, hey, you put up a 50 spot on. I know it was Vanderbilt, but you put up a 50 spot on an SEC team today. You're bowl eligible. I mean, Brian and I were laughing about this. Is you remember in 2009, that was even a team that was top 5 in the country coming in, and they did after the 6th win, which I think might have been against Lane, was the Ole Miss Rebels are now bowl eligible. Like, Lane would yell at someone if they did that at Vaught Hemingway today. Like, it's not even in the
Oh,
realm.
he
So,
would
like,
literally he would kill someone.
so your program
But
is
you
in
know what?
such a better spot. Like, just take a breath for a minute.
In 2019, can you imagine the celebration? 2019, that's not that long ago. In 2019, the celebration that would have occurred had Ole Miss gotten bowl eligible.
Mm-hmm.
2019. There are players on the team today that were on the team in 2019.
And today, 8-4 will be seen by a lot of the fans as a disappointment should that happen.
And at this point, it would be.
Yeah.
Today's the first day that I'm saying that, by the way. And it's not really based on what Ole Miss did. It's just looking around the landscape.
No, 9-3 is your baseline right now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, there's a real chance. I mean, at the risk of pissing off a lot of people, there's a real chance that Egg Bowl is for something big. Now, they still got to play Alabama, and they still got to play Georgia. But
and that's the problem. Like, they can have 3 losses going into the Egg Bowl.
They could.
And maybe they play somebody else. I don't know what their schedule is after that. Oh, they still have Kentucky, but Levis better be healthy.
They still have Kentucky. They still have Auburn. But I mean, what's
New
the
Year's
line
Six
on
bowl is the standard. Yes, that's correct. A New Year's Six bowl is the expectation.
Yeah, for sure. At this point, yeah. I mean, it's pretty damn remarkable when you, again, 2019, not that long ago. Really not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
A New Year's Six bowl game was not the standard in 2019. In fact, it was a fantasy.
It's remarkable. 17-3. I mean, you'll get to do your little stat again for one more game.
Yeah, I mean, they're 17-3. Let's see, Michigan won today, so they're 18-2.
Bama and Georgia, obviously.
Georgia won today, so they're 19-1. If Alabama wins, they're 18-2. Oklahoma State won, they're 18-2. And Ohio State, I don't know. I think they won, right?
Yeah. If they
so
played,
they're 17-3.
They haven't lost.
They're 17-3. So you are a legitimate, over the last 20 games, you are a legitimate top 6 national program. You just happen to be in a league that has two teams ahead of you. But Ole Miss has established itself as the 3rd best team in the league over the last 20 games. With, depending on what Kentucky does tonight, Kentucky being the only team that's close to you.
Are you running and they're losing right now. Are you running a risk? Is Arkansas running a risk of falling apart emotionally where even getting KJ back is not going to help?
I didn't see their game today, so I don't know. I don't know what they look like. I mean, defensively, obviously, they predictably struggled. I think I told you, and it was hard to explain. Touchdown A&M. It was kind of hard to explain something about their body language, the way that A&M game ended, and it was a devastating loss. I think they're in a totally different spot today if they beat Texas A&M. The way that game ended, the way it was lost. Oh, what a brilliant play to slip out. I think it maybe did them in. I mean, they're in trouble, obviously, but they get him back at some point. I'm assuming, and they still have a pretty dynamic rushing attack. They're going to beat somebody and spoil somebody's season. I think because they're just that good offensively, but defensively they're a train wreck.
Because they're 3-3 now, right?
Yeah, 3-3. That A&M game. I mean, you change it for them, and 4-2 sounds a lot different than 3-3. And who knows? They probably are a completely different team. They got off to such a bad start against Bama, and who knows? I mean, look, it's this league. It's a weird league. It's weirder this year than it's been in a long time. One game can kind of get you. I mean, you see that.
I didn't see the answer. So, and you were busy. You were trying to get to a stadium and do whatever you were doing before the game. Do we know, was Venables yelling? Were they distraught? Why did it take Oklahoma an hour to get to the press conference today?
Yeah, all I know is that it took an hour. I don't know why. I mean, I'm guessing that he either was yelling at his team or they were having that therapy session. But an hour.
To the point that Texas went ahead and went.
Yeah, like, hey, we've got buses to catch. What was the final? 49-0?
That is correct, I think.
That game doesn't happen like that. That's if you're Oklahoma, that's a scary thing. I mean,
I get your quarterback was out, but ugh.
Yeah, but like, come on. Other teams played without their quarterbacks today and lost, but they didn't lose like that.
I guess in a way, I'm reading from the stream. Tim goes, I want Bama to lose because it helps Ole Miss. I don't know. Does it? I mean, if you're trying to win the West, just beat Bama.
Sure. No, it does. Look, you're going to have to beat Alabama, but you want them to get a loss. If they were to get a loss and lose again next week, well, that would be 2 losses.
I guess that's the point, is you would need them to have 2 for it to matter.
But at the end of the day, but your point is a good one. At the end of the day, if you want to get there, you've got to go through them. So go through them.
Yeah, do the thing where if you beat them, you can lose
what's
a
left
game.
for Ole Miss. It's what's left for Ole Miss, though. What's left for Ole Miss is this. The schedule maker was good to you. It's never going to be perfect. But what's left is to get to the SEC championship game, to go play for a championship. And to do that, you know who you have to beat. So beat them. And they come to your place. You get an open date before it. So do it. I mean, it's not that simple, but it is that simple.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming to your place.
The last time the Egg Bowl meant something was 2015, because that was the day that the 2 media members for the Bulldogs had their instant analysis thing where they were very frustrated and said they were never going to cover a Sugar Bowl, and were quite upset about it.
Prescott's last game.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Ole Miss played really well that night.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's right there in front of you. So he picked it.
It's starting to get a little interesting.
Oh, it's interesting now officially. Look, I mean, this is going to sound crazy, I know, because Arkansas's 3-3. But I'm telling you, if they don't convert, if Alabama doesn't convert that 3rd and 15 last week, that might have gotten weird last week. And that's not a statement about Arkansas, before anybody does that to me. It's a statement about Alabama. I'm telling you, they're vulnerable. Go back and look at that game last week in Fayetteville. And it's 28-23. It's 3rd and 15, and that place is starting to think, ooh, is this going to be our day? And to his credit, the quarterback made a 77-yard run and was like, nope, it's not going to be your day. But I'm telling you, if like he runs for 7 yards there and they have to punt, Chase, that game was going to get weird. They're vulnerable.
I think I agree here. One more series, and I mean, I mean, Saban's smarter than all of us. Don't get me wrong, but either they're stubborn, they have to change, or people are completely wrong about how good Ty Simpson is. Because if he's good, he's got to play right now. This is not working.
I'm with you. This feels like that kind of that moment. Remember when Georgia? I can't remember where the game was. Maybe it was in Fayetteville. They were losing. I think it was. They were losing to Arkansas, playing the kid who never played again. And they're like, nope, this isn't working. And they put Bennett in, and he ended up blowing Arkansas out. But I think it was Fayetteville. Maybe it was
JT Daniels.
No, I can't. It was a kid. They started it. I can't remember. Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
No. What a terrible throw. God, what a bad throw.
Carolina beating Kentucky 14-7 with 8 minutes left in the third quarter.
So did Levis get hurt in Oxford and we just missed it?
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah.
A foot injury?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he was hurt all week, so yeah, I guess. I didn't hear anything about it before Ole Miss, and he has not practiced. I mean, he didn't do anything all week.
Huh.
I don't know what play, if it was maybe on one of those last couple where, you know what I mean? That's.
Yeah, maybe so. I just never saw him get hurt, but I didn't notice it.
Because he didn't even try. He didn't do warm-ups or anything today. So, I don't know how long he's out. I don't know what that looks like. Got nothing. No idea. But no, it's right there. I mean, Alabama, there's several games they have not won if this is their quarterback situation.
Oh, I mean, Milroe's really limited.
I mean, Ginger says that Kentucky Sports Radio said he heard it in the first quarter against Ole Miss.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Would have never guessed it. Although he wasn't. Looking back on it, I remember people going, "My God, he's like a statue." And I thought, he's never been a statue before. He's always been able to move a little bit.
That is a good point that you guys are making, and I'm kind of relenting and agreeing because I wasn't thinking about it very clearly. If A&M found a way to win this game tonight, you could be really big Tennessee fans, because if Tennessee found a way to pull it off, yeah, you could only have to win games you're favored in and beat LSU to go to Atlanta. That's it.
Oh, I think Ole Miss will be favored at LSU.
Well, just the ESPN FPI right now has Ole Miss favored in every game except for in Baton Rouge and against Alabama.
Oh.
I was just going off the computer.
So what do you think the line is Saturday for Auburn?
Jeffrey and I were talking about that. I think it's opening somewhere between 12.5 and 14.
Yeah, I had 12.5 going into the day, and I think it's a little higher than that. I'll say 13.5. That's my guess, but honest to God, I think I'd lay the points right now.
Mm-hmm.
They can't score.
No, they're horrific offensively. They're terrible.
And Ole Miss is pretty good on defense. I mean,
and they make adjustments. That's a couple weeks in a row. They've done a really good job at points where they were getting gashed to move guys around. They need Troy to be okay, because I thought we knew DeAndre and AJ played well today, but I thought Troy really moved around in the middle of the field well today. I'm
gonna tell you what. I don't know. I do a show with him, and try to get him to talk about it, and he kind of does. Davison Igbinosun cuts the field in half.
Mm-hmm.
On the list of 5 most valuable players on that team, he's on it.
Oh, you think so?
He cuts the field in half. His guy never gets open.
That's true. You don't have a lot of tackles if they don't target your guy.
You have to scheme them. Yeah, and he has like one pass breakup. In fact, he insists that he has one, and the stat sheet doesn't show it. They never throw at his guy.
Mm-hmm.
Vanderbilt did a couple of times today with very little success.
South Carolina first and goal now, up 14-7.
I'm going to miss that one too. I think I had a bad week. I haven't paid attention.
Well, TCU helped me and you, I think, because they ended up covering against Kansas.
Yeah, I had that one. I had UCLA. They covered.
Okay. So I missed that one. I forgot we even picked that game.
So Bama's going to have a 3-point lead at the half.
Do they?
Okay. Yeah, Reichard made a 50-yarder.
He's good.
Yeah, he's good.
So, crowd size percentage, 50-50?
I would have guessed like 60, maybe even 65% Ole Miss. I don't know what they announced. That place, there were plenty of seats available. It's hard to. Supposedly they're doing renovation on that place after the season. It needs it. It really needs it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of sad. That's sort of a sad place to go to a game.
That's actually a really good word for it because there's just no real hope relative to the rest of the league,
No,
even
I
at their
mean,
relative nature of it.
and they can't really use the portal even if they wanted to. They just kind of have a mess. There's no path for them really to like win. I mean, their path is maybe you try to figure out a way to become a 6 or 7 win a year program, but I don't even know how the hell you do that.
You really need Missouri and South Carolina to suck.
I mean, to really suck. And now you're going to add Texas and Oklahoma, and I mean, at least those places care. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of sad. I mean, like I told you, I was standing outside of there. I was waiting for Chris, and some of their kids were coming out, and girlfriends and parents and stuff were waiting. I don't know. You could just tell they're used to this. It's kind of sad. That's all. They're nice kids. They played hard. They tried. And they're getting their food, and they're getting on their scooters and leaving. And, it's kind of whatever. Got brunch in the morning. Got to check in the morning. Got to get ready. I think they go to Georgia next week where they'll get smoked. I mean, they know it. I don't know how do you make that entertaining? How do you make that fun, if you will? I don't know. Beats me.
Yeah.
Quite the difference, in from compared to like Ole Miss, where I mean they're going to show up for work tomorrow and for the film and lift and stuff, and they're playing for big things.
Yeah, I think so. There's a real path to things. Everything's in front of them.
Sure.
Frankly, for a lot of most SEC schools have something.
Yeah.
And Vandy doesn't. So, all right. Safe trip tomorrow. We'll talk to you again on Monday.
All right, Jay. See you.
Was Neil McCready there with us from Nashville. We'll obviously be back with him. Again, I'm going to talk to Brian for his show tomorrow, and then on Monday we'll have a normal week. Leave the lineup for a minute. We've been going 2-11, so it won't go any long. But whoever's got a call to kind of close us out, feel free. 662-259-7556. We're going to have halftime in A&M in Alabama. And again, South Carolina was driving. I didn't see how that ended, but South Carolina up on Kentucky right now in Lexington for that one. Again, that backup quarterback for Kentucky, this makes it a very winnable game for the Gamecocks at the moment. So that's pretty doable. Good bit of content up. Again, Neil said he already had a column about just kind of where Ole Miss is, some analysis, notebook, and then I've got observations as well. We'll have Lane whenever it goes into the FTP to pull it out. So a good bit of content up at rebelgrove.com as well. It's the next step, Doris. He says, I'm curious how Ole Miss can play as the hunted, the team everyone gets up for, a team that realistically has the talent to beat us. Yeah, I mean, it's already kind of happening. I mean, Kentucky had it circled. Tennessee had it circled last year. A&M had it circled last year. You're seeing it. Ole Miss is just winning games right now against a lot of teams that have equal or maybe better talent. Baton Rouge will be a test. I mean, Ole Miss is better than LSU, but that's going to be a test in 2 weeks. I just think you might have a fragile Auburn team in here, and it's a team that can't score. I mean, if Ole Miss loses to Auburn, it's on Ole Miss. It's nothing that Auburn was able to just necessarily do. Ole Miss is better. But there's a lot of season to go. 6-0 though. I mean, this is. Yeah, it'll be raining in Fayetteville, cold. That feels miserable all the way around, doesn't it? It really does. It's kind of what you're used to. It's very rarely like a garden spot, great weather for Ole Miss and Arkansas up there. The Little Rock weather's been okay a couple times. Which, if I'm Arkansas, I don't know why I ever played Ole Miss in Little Rock. I would always play Ole Miss in Fayetteville. Again, Ole Miss and Auburn, 11 o'clock from Vaught Hemingway next week for that one. And yeah, unless something that I missed, there was no chance to. I mean, I guess you can move up in the polls, but nobody's moving up in the polls because of a loss, barring Alabama. Everybody else had won. South Carolina got a field goal. They're up 17-7 on Kentucky right now. Yes, Ole Miss does not typically play well in Fayetteville. It is not a good spot. Versus Baton Rouge, where Ole Miss plays well most of the time, for whatever reason. State's the one that plays terrible in Baton Rouge most of the time. I don't hate Carolina's uniforms. I know white on white's pretty good most of the time anyway, but they're not crazy busy. They're okay. I think I'd like the white helmet better, but they're all right. Yeah, they're pressuring the heck out of that Kentucky quarterback, the freshman. So okay. Give it one more minute. Anybody want to make a last call? 662-259-7556, the number here. Yeah, again, Ole Miss never beats Auburn, but again, Lane has just changed the narrative on a lot of that. There's a lot of stuff Ole Miss didn't do that they're doing right now. I mean, and beating Auburn's the next step. You look at the last 2 years. In the COVID year, Ole Miss should have won the game. The referees bailed Auburn out of that football game. Ole Miss did enough to win. And then last year, Matt had his issues and got hurt. Kentucky having blue and white as colors and this being the chrome helmet is awful. I mean, they deserve to lose because of the uniform they have on right now. It's a complete abomination all the way around. It's just terrible. I know Neil said he likes checkerboards. I don't really like those either, but the chrome is horrific. So, all right. Again, Ole Miss 52, Vanderbilt 28 from Nashville today. Thanks to Jeffrey, Neil, and Brian for their time, and you guys who called as well. We'll be back here next week. We'll go to the game for a little while, and then hang out with you guys. Ole Miss and Auburn, 11 o'clock from Vaught-Hemingway Stadium next Saturday. Ole Miss 6-0, trying to get to 7-0. Should be I know it's 11 o'clock, but should be a good environment. I know a ton of people in town are coming into town. Hotel prices and stuff is just insane. I've heard a lot of stuff for weeks about the price because of the availability issues of getting things in Oxford next week. So it'll be a zoo in Lafayette County, and we'll have coverage of that. So to give you guys all the content we can leading up to that. Sorry, I had a little bit of a misstep there, but thanks to everybody who joined us, everybody in the stream, and we'll be back with you on Monday for a normal week of MPW Digital and RebelGrove.com.